Hello and welcome to the Hard Stuff podcast. Today my guest is Kylie Kinsella. Kylie is Group Managing Director of Regent Holdings, which is a bunch of different companies, which she will explain herself in the episode. She has recently taken on the presidency for the Pump Industry Australia. Kylie's awesome. She's very impressive. We had a fantastic chat about our industry, how she manages so many businesses, and kind of what it was like coming up in a male-dominated industry. If you enjoy this, please like and follow on any audio platform you are listening to it on. Let's get on with the show. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. Kylie Kinsella, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
No worries at all. We met recently because you have taken on president in the Pump Industry Australia. And I had no idea who you were, and then kind of finding out a bit about your background and what you currently do in the industry is fairly impressive. So I thought I wanted to have you on the show and see if we can inspire some people.
Thank you. Look forward to talking to you.
Cool. So maybe if you could just dive into your current position and what you're currently doing in the industry. And we spoke before we got started, and I think what's also very inspiring about your story is I can't think of an industry that's more male-dominated than both the pump industry and manufacturing. I think even more so than construction and stuff like that. So, yeah, looking forward to hearing your journey.
Okay, so currently I'm the Managing Director for Regent Holdings, and under Regent Holdings sits some trading entities, the main ones being Regent Pumps, which was the first business. So there's Regent Pumps, DCS Manufacturing, which is a manufacturer of jetting trucks, combination units.
Yeah.
Then there's another smaller business called Matthew Davis, which is pipe, valves and fittings. I think I mentioned Pump Care. Pump Care is like, so it's other sorts of technology. So Regent's mainly centrifugal pumps, where Pump Care does everything.
Okay.
And then there's another small business called Regent Dynamics, which is...
I just keep coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, it goes on. Sometimes I have to check the list myself, you know. So, yeah, it keeps me busy.
Yeah, awesome. And you were saying before, I mean, they're all in different locations. So how do you manage that?
So I try to split up my week. It's not always perfect. Sometimes it's mainly I sit at Regent Pumps in Dingley, but I try to do a day or two at DCS Manufacturing. And then the other businesses, they're the smaller ones, so it depends what I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, with time spent.
Do whatever you need to do to keep all the gears and cogs moving.
Correct. So it helps. I've got a management team in the two bigger businesses.
Yep.
And that helps me, but I still do a lot of I still do a lot.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And you decided to take on presidency of the PIA?
Yeah, that was a bit of a nutty, yeah.
Well, look, we needed someone. We needed somebody fresh and dynamic. There's been a few issues in the last few years. I think it's still been a great experience, but just with, I guess, a lot of the older blokes that have been in for years kind of moving on, it feels like there's been a bit of a lack of leadership. So I
sort of, the main driver for me was I was asked to do a Women in the Industry presentation for the PIA when COVID was on. It was on Zoom. And John Inster rang me at that time and said, well, what impact can you make? Because I spoke to him about it being a boys' club. And he said, well, what are you going to do about it?
About the industry or the PIA
both,
specifically?
Both.
Yeah. Without doubt, they both are.
And then I got approached by Joel, who was acting as president at the time, and a couple of the committee members, and I thought, is it time to put myself out there? I'm not naturally an extroverted person, so yeah, it was a big decision to put myself out there.
Oh, I mean, the extrovert, I think that's the least of your worries. I think spinning 13 plates at once is probably the bigger issue.
But if you understand my background, I've always been in the industry, and all my colleagues have all been men, so that wasn't the fear factor for me.
Yep.
Working with a male group.
Yeah.
Because it's all I'm used to.
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we spoke earlier about you being quite a shy child, and you went to the UK for a few years to kind of,
Yes.
and you think.
So I went to the UK for 2 years, and I had to put myself out there quickly, otherwise it's sink or swim type situation. And it sort of empowered me a little. And then by the time I came back, I went into industry straight away, into pneumatics.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And how was your experience being a woman in such a male-dominated field?
well, I hadn't mentioned it to you earlier, but when I was in pneumatics, my boss had on his wall nudie calendars. That's how.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you think back, how inappropriate. But
I still walk into workshops with that on there from some
when
clients.
I think back, I thought of this the other day. I thought, oh gosh, I used to put up with that, walk in and say we had a visitor. I was probably the busiest person because I was in internal sales. He would ring me and say, oh, can you make the tea and coffee? And I started saying, no, I can't. No, I can't. I'm too busy.
Yep.
So I might have been shy, but I had some backbone, I think.
I think you need to be in an industry like this.
Yeah. And so I was doing internal sales, and then I said to the owner at the time, I really want to try being on the road. And he said, I don't think a woman can do that. What if someone is rude to you or...
A woman can't deal with
Yeah,
being
exactly.
rude.
So he only started me 2 days a week.
And how long ago was this?
So 95, 96.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started doing that, on the road selling, and I really liked it. And then eventually he made me full-time. But I remember being in that team of salespeople. I think there was 15 of us, and I was the only female.
What were you selling?
Pneumatic gears like air guns,
Yep.
pneumatic multi-spindle nut runners, couplings, airline, all that sort of stuff.
How did you fall into the industry?
I don't know. I went for an interview and I got the job, and it just went from there. And then
Yeah.
I had an interest. I just got interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn.
Yeah. I just got interested and I enjoyed it.
So how did you find, being a woman in an industry like this, I guess how were you received in sales and stuff like that? Was there any issues?
No, they were probably because I was the only one. I remember going into the Toyota plants at the time, Toyota and Holden and Ford. There wasn't any other women going in. So they were very nice to me. But I had to know a lot. Like I feel like I had to know more than everyone else because some guys would take me on in terms of product knowledge and stuff like that.
As in test whether you're worthy to be in the position you're in.
Yeah, and a lot of the gear I couldn't even lift because it was too heavy. So I'd have to try to convince someone to come to my car, bring it in. Yeah, when I think back, it was interesting times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I stayed in that job 10 years. I really liked the job.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then where did that lead to?
That led to, I left because I needed to do something else. So I left and I went into a product management role in pumps, positive displacement pumps. But I remember even at the interview, my boss said to me at the time, I don't think you're the right person, but yeah, let's talk. That
Okay.
was how the interview started.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sort of went from there. So there was 3 product managers, and me being one of them. The other 2 guys were engineers. I wasn't. 12 months later, I was their boss. I was the team leader, and then and then I got promoted to national sales manager. So yeah.
Yeah. You spoke about for the interview there being some issues with bosses asking, or you, I guess you being not wanting to be open about the fact that you wanted a family because you thought it would negatively affect your career.
I kept it very quiet.
Okay.
I never told. I was very quiet on who I was dating and what that might have meant, because I used to get asked a lot, oh, you might have a baby, so that meant you can't do this job.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I was young then and I didn't know what I wanted, but yeah, I kept things. I learnt quickly to keep my private life very quiet.
Okay. Do you think, I mean, from your perspective, has I guess that stigma around women not being able to be in our industry, do you think that's lifted over recently, or do you think it's still heavily there?
I think it's still there.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's got to be like, what, 1 out of 100?
Yeah, I think it's still there. Yeah, I think women don't know. I I think the challenge for women is, if you, like, I'm a very much a girly girl, and I think, you know, women struggle to be themselves. Like, you know, it's okay to be a girly girl and love pumps.
Yeah.
Or trucks or whatever else you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't have to change. I used to see women come and go in roles because they'd either try to be masculine and fit in with the guys, or they just didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, well, I think there's a fear of bringing women into a workplace like we have, because they think everything's going to change and we're going to have to change who we are. So I guess coming in from a woman's perspective, you'll probably want to mirror.
Yeah, so my older brother actually said to me, just be yourself. When you go for a job, just be who you are.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuck with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just be yourself.
Yeah. Well, it must be working, because you've continuously rose up the ranks.
I don't know. With my current role, obviously I'd been with this group for 8 years, and I started as GM of one of their businesses. And Roger must have seen something in me. I don't know. He didn't communicate that. It was only when he was close. He had pancreatic cancer and passed away 5 years ago in April, and we were in a meeting with all the lawyers, and he just pointed to me when they asked, well, who's going to take over? And he just pointed to me, and I actually thought, is there someone behind me? Like, you know, I looked around behind me and I thought, is he pointing to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old is the company, Regent Pumps?
About
that was the first
60
one, wasn't
years
it?
old, yeah, because his father started Regent.
How old? 60?
Yeah.
Okay, wow. It's an Australian company, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So interesting, because Roger and I are like chalk and cheese. He was the autocratic manager, that old school, everything ran through him. And he knew I was not like that at all. Mm-hmm. You know, I talked to all my staff.
That kind of leadership is very limiting, I think, when you get to a certain level.
Yes.
Because you become the bottleneck in every aspect of the business.
Yeah, he had some unbelievable ideas. You know, he created the group. Very clever. Yeah. But we're just very, very different. But what he did do is he had an accountant who is the other director of the businesses, and he's amazing. And so I've got him, Malcolm, as constant support, and he's just been amazing. Yep. Yeah.
So how did you find that handover period and to actually start running everything?
I had Malcolm, so I was pretty lucky, because Malcolm had been with Roger 35 years. Mm-hmm. And so Malcolm had all the history. You know, when I was trying to understand why, Malcolm could come in and go, oh, he did this because blah, 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 you know. And even now I speak to Malcolm most days. He's not in the businesses, but he is. Yep. So it's helpful.
So have you implemented any change or anything since you've...
There's been so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the first minor change was all the phones, especially at Regent, ran through him and his PA. Yeah. And no one was allowed to answer the phone. I feel like our industry is so behind in so many ways. Like, I know people running huge businesses, and they're still, you know, everything's handwritten. Manual.
They'll just handwrite it and give them to their assistant and stuff like that. So I'm part of
That's what he did. Yeah.
I'm part of an organisation called the Entrepreneurs Organisation, and I see some of the, you know, practices that some of these new dynamic businesses are running, and then I look at the landscape of our current industry.
Yeah, and you're like, we're not there.
And it's the same thing with the PIA, and that's why I'm so excited to kind of modernise and
it is an exciting time.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel that in the organisations that I represent, because of the way it was just him, you know?
What's that, sorry?
Roger. The way, you know, we're doing so much change.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a certain aspect in most business where they need to pivot, right? So you need to be quite aggressive, and well, not aggressive, but be dynamic and be able to run everything and maintain standard when the business is at a small level. But I think once you get to a certain level, I think that actually becomes an issue or a bottleneck, and you need to get somebody fresh in that's going to modernise the business and be able to move it to the next level.
Yeah, I don't know if he thought that. I don't know.
I'm sure he didn't think that, but that's what I think naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where he thought the businesses would go once he passed. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Though he gave me a lot of time.
As in?
His time.
Okay. To train you up to the next level?
Well, I didn't know it was training, but he sat me, so his office is right next to a boardroom, and I sat in the boardroom. I didn't have a desk for 18 months, and I could hear everything.
What do you mean you didn't have a desk?
I didn't have a desk. He sat me
Oh,
on the
you were in
boardroom table.
Yeah.
And so I was close to him,
Yeah.
so that I could hear everything, and he'd have meetings, and he wouldn't really introduce me. I'd sit and just work and be listening.
Yeah.
So it was a really odd way to, be introduced to it.
Yeah,
all.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a big jump as well. Did you find, as far as kind of managing and the business side of things, how was that jump for you?
It was okay. It's hard to explain. It was okay. He had really good people. Mm-hmm. They didn't know how good they were, but he had really, really good people.
Okay.
And so it was just opening up opportunities for them.
Yeah.
You know, when I released those phones and they were all picking up the phones and I remember my first meeting with them and I'm like, has anyone got any ideas? And I got crickets. But then, down the track, I could hear them all have a meeting on their own and laughing and talking. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm winning.
Yeah, okay.
They're talking. I'm winning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So there was a bit of a resistance, or not a resistance.
They just didn't think that they could say anything.
Yeah, it was very run by the top down.
Yeah, approach.
I mean, that approach, it just means that the boss is going to have to work ridiculous hours forever because they're
Which he did. He worked weekends and he did the whole bit, but I couldn't do that.
No.
No.
Oh, well, I don't think it's necessary.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
That's another thing. Like I feel like I look at our industry, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like our industry is very unique. It's dominated by a bunch of businesses where the boss just works crazy hours and refuses to delegate things.
Yeah.
It feels like it's a relic of a past time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I was sort of lucky because I started off in PD pumps, and they're a different breed to the water industry.
Okay.
pump.
Yeah.
And they gave me a lot of time. I did a lot of training, and they gave me a lot of confidence. So a similar age to me.
Yep.
And they helped me a lot get going on pumps.
What was your position there?
I was national sales.
Okay.
So I got to go overseas and train at some of the big manufacturing companies. So I got to see. So it made it easy when I took over at Regent because I could see what it could become.
Yeah.
Because I'd been to Wilden and Blackmore and Movex and I'd spent, I'd go there for a week and just train with their people.
Yeah.
And so it gave me a really good insight to pump manufacturing.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know I'd need that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, look, I want to get back to, you going to London, I guess, and what you got out of that trip.
Yeah, I guess I realised I could do it on my own. I went to London because I'd been gripped onto by my parents who kept me close. My father was particularly protective, and I come from a close family, and I needed to sort of get out and be on my own for a bit.
Yeah.
Because I think Dad would have protected me forever. Yeah, it's hard to put it into words.
No, it makes sense. I mean, yeah, you need to learn through, I don't want to say school of hard knocks, but yeah.
Yeah, and, even after I finished year 12, I still had curfew. I still had,
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So very protective. Have two brothers, an older and a younger.
Yeah.
And a lot of pressure on my older brother to sort of look after me all the time, make sure she's all right. Oh, she can go out if she's with you, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you think's the secret to your success in the industry? Just hard work?
Hard work, yeah. And I think because I had two brothers, they were pretty tough on me. Yeah, as the middle child. they always say I was Dad's favourite, but yeah, I don't think anyone could have been harder on me than they were. So it sort of taught me, working with all men, to bounce a bit, not to let it worry me.
Yeah.
Because they'd already done that to me, if that makes sense. There was all roasting me, or there was always a lot going on in our house.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a tight family, so.
You spoke previously about going out to sales calls.
Yeah.
And kind of being ignored.
Yeah.
And them going directly to
the male.
To the male, even though you were in the senior position.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you find that, and how did you not let for me, there would have been such a deep sense of injustice that I would have just gotten angry and flipped my lid, I guess.
Yeah, it didn't worry me.
No.
I used to think, at my time, I'll let them talk it out. It gave me time to listen. I'd always have my iPad or whatever, and I would be taking notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't let it get me down or anything like that. I used to just see it as time to absorb what was going on and listen.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a good reader of people.
Yeah.
So I used to try to weigh up, what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we said before about being shy potentially makes you a better people reader. Do you want to dive into what you were saying there?
I think when you're shy, you tend to sit back and you're reading the room because you're anxious. You're naturally anxious.
You're reading the room because you're
trying to work out,
worried that everybody's thinking negatively about you.
Well, it wasn't about me. It was always about, do I think I can do that? I always have this thing, like, for example, when I became president of the PIA, I sent to my family group saying, "Hi all, I've just become the president of the PIA. I hope I can do it." So it's that sort of, it's always about me.
Yeah.
Can I do it? Even though deep down I know I can, but it's still that shyness that, always that reservation.
Yeah.
Do I have that ability?
It's
am I going to cut it?
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think a lot of the men think that. Like I've seen, for example, in salary negotiations, how the men are to how the women are. And the men go in confident, they're ready. Whereas the women are always, do you think I'm worth that?
Do you think that's specifically because it's a male-dominated industry, or do you think that's just in general?
I don't know, because I haven't worked in an industry where it isn't male-dominated. So it's all I know. But I see it definitely at wage review time. I see the women going quite differently.
Okay.
The men are always, very forward with what they want.
Interesting. Yeah, I think so. I think, I used to be very shy when I was younger, and I think you're absolutely right. It makes you, and maybe this is anxiety, but it makes you more self-aware of what's going on and be able to read what other people are thinking.
But I do think it makes you a better manager because you have empathy for people that may not speak up in that meeting, that you can see their thinking, you can see the cogs are turning, and you think they want to say something but they're too scared to say something because someone else is so dominant. Yeah. So I'm always very aware in meetings, especially in my own team.
So how would you tackle something like that?
I give them the opportunity to speak. I'll quieten down the loudest person in the room. And
that's usually me. I have to, I've got the feedback that I kind of dominate meetings a bit too much, and I'm really actively trying to work on that. And I think part of it is like if things go silent, I feel like I need to be able to fill that void. So.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Well, I guess my sales training taught me just to wait it out.
Yeah.
Just stay silent and wait it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just wait. I can wait forever.
Interesting.
Just let someone, encourage someone to speak. I can just wait. Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit of a tactic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you spoke about, I guess maybe dive into more, I guess, the fear about letting people know about your desire to have a family and stuff like that. Do you think that fear was kind of justified within the industry? Or?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I had a major relationship breakdown in my early 30s And so then I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to have kids now. And so I met my husband when I was later. I didn't get married till I was 37. And by that stage, we tried IVF. But in saying I tried IVF, I used to go to appointments at 7 o'clock in the morning so that I was never late for work.
Okay.
I'd go, have my blood test, get everything I needed, get my injections, all that.
So do you think that was through a fear that you didn't want to appear that the fact that you're a woman doing these things is going to affect your ability to do a good job?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm careful not to show a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I'm really careful not to show a weakness or a perceived weakness.
Okay.
In a peer group, in a management peer group. So
yeah, okay.
So I kept that very quiet because that would show that I'm maybe human or soft or I don't know.
Yeah, but I think vulnerability, which sounds like you're talking about potentially you didn't want to be vulnerable.
No.
But I think not being vulnerable potentially hinders being able to have a connection and build relationships with people.
Yes, so I used to keep that very private.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd go at 7 o'clock, have what I needed, my blood test, whatever, and then go to work and no one knew. I remember going to Perth for work, getting on the plane, having my letter because I was still having injections and, the staff didn't know. I'd have a break, go to the toilet, inject myself.
Yeah.
So, I was very quiet about it.
Yeah.
And then,
how do you think that affected you? I mean, that sounds kind of
it's hard.
lonely.
It's a bit hard. Yeah. And
do you think our industry, you would still do that today?
No.
No?
I don't think so now. But then it depends. Are there bosses like you? Are there bosses like me? For some people there isn't. For some people there is.
I think it's shifting. But again, I constantly think like our whole industry is a relic of the past. I feel like we're 25 years behind everywhere else.
Yeah.
And I find the same. I mean, I speak a lot about mental health and stuff like that. And, most other people that I speak to that have businesses, it's just like it's natural for them to be able to speak about mental health within their business and be able to connect with people. But I still feel this weird, I guess, stigma. And I wonder how much that's me and I wonder how much that's the industry. I feel like there is a lot of, I've got to be careful not to get myself in trouble, but there's a lot of big egos,
I think so too. Yeah. I definitely think so. Because I've attended a few of those meetings where you know that's there.
Yeah.
Initially when Roger passed and I was going to meet some of the larger people in the industry, bigger people, I had questions like, well, who are you? Who are you? How long, do you know anything about pumps? That sort of questioning.
Yeah.
Though, in credit, some of the men from other businesses would step in and go, she's been in pumps for years.
Yeah. Because I think...
Don't say that.
I think it is shifting. I mean, what did you say before about somebody called you and said, we need to speak to a man?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
I've had customers, upset customers that going, I need to speak to a man. And I'm like, why?
It's not funny, but I'm laughing because it's just like so outrageous.
I'm the boss of the men. Do you still really want to speak to a man? Is that going to help you?
So how do you handle situations
I just
like
stay
that?
firm.
Yeah.
And then eventually they can't, they end up liking me because I just stay firm.
Yeah.
And then they'll keep asking for me. It's interesting how it turns.
I don't hear stories like that. I feel like if something like that happened in another industry, that person would be dragged out the back and shot. You know what I mean? But we just have this again, it's not really that funny. It's actually kind of sad, but it's just like, I feel like it's just so backwards in so many ways.
When I think back, it is pretty funny.
Yeah. I'm glad that you can laugh about it because
it is pretty funny that some guy's on the phone wanting a man. Odd. Really, really odd. But yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And same on, when I've been on site and there's been questions and I can solve the problem, but I'll stand back and let it all happen and then I'll go in at the last minute and go, that's actually not going to work. You need to do this, this and this. And then they're, oh, you do know? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Interesting.
Yeah. But in saying, yes, it's been hard being a woman, but it's also had its advantages because the people who had met me remember me. So, like when I fly interstate now, I hadn't gone and seen customers after my national role. I got busy internally, especially with Roger passing and all that. But as soon as I'm back out, people want to see me because they remember me.
Yeah.
They remember my name.
Yeah.
Because there isn't any females. So
Yeah, you're the only one.
exactly. So you do get remembered as well. So I've got some really long relationships with customers because of that.
Well, you definitely stand out because, like I said, you came up on my radar. I was like, oh, but this is a woman. I was like, this is fantastic. And then I started looking into you a bit. I was like, oh my god, this is unheard of.
Yeah. So I've got good customers because I was the only female as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, and people tend to tell me stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I try to have that personal connection with people and they tend to confide in me about stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they're not going to tell a bloke that. A bloke to a bloke. Whereas a bloke to a female will tend to tell you that softer thing, that personal thing, that...
Again, I think it's bloke to bloke in our industry, but I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So it makes forming relationships easy.
Okay.
Yeah. Once they get over the woman thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I want to talk more about kind of how you manage to manage so many businesses at once. What does that look like from a practical level?
It can be intense, especially because you've got ideas for every business.
Yep.
And it's trying to get them all through.
I guess... Oh, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so I have my management teams, which they're fantastic. They do a lot.
I mean, you'd have to be really good at delegation, which, no.
No, I'm not too bad. Not too bad. I'm working on that. I still do a lot of the doing, but they do a lot of the doing too. They're all quite new managers in terms of the level of management they're now doing. So I'm trying to train them up to be the best they can be. And I love when I see them growing and changing, and that gives me a lot of joy.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Cool. So you've got management teams in two of the larger business?
Yes. So we meet monthly, but I pretty much speak to them all most days.
Okay.
So that's a few calls, isn't it, when I think
about
that?
Yeah, it's a lot.
So there's 4 in each business. So with split roles. But I speak to them all a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. When I think about it, my office is like a revolving door.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what do you see your position in as just basically keeping all the cogs together?
I think so, yeah. It's always the bigger picture. I'm responsible for the bigger picture.
Vision.
Yeah, strategy.
Making sure that we're actually moving towards that strategy and not getting lost in the weeds on a day-to-day basis.
I think because they're quite new management teams, they're a couple of years in, hopefully they'll get more into the strategy and I can...
Was there management teams in position before you started?
No, there was a couple of GMs.
Yeah.
But there's a whole story behind that. But
I'm interested in it. Or unless it's
I can't say
secret,
too much, but because I sold one of the businesses in just after Roger died.
Yep.
Malcolm and I had been working on selling one of the companies, which is called Spoutback. So that went to a company called Booker Municipal. The managing director of Booker Municipal was very good to me through the sale. Because Roger just passed and we probably had another 4 or 5 months to go because Booker's such a large business that there was teams for everything. So there was a HR team, an accounting team, a legal team, a project. So I had to keep meeting with all the teams and Malcolm was helping me on the side, but he realised that I was it in the sale and I was dealing with all these teams that they were putting to me. And so he gave me a lot of time. He gave me a lot of insight into, how to run things. He was very good to me as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
any influences from outside the industry?
Not really.
Our industry is so colloquial. I feel like nobody branches out to it.
No. I'm very lucky. My mum was a general manager at Tabcorp.
Okay.
So she she had a full-on role herself. And my older brother runs his own business, and my younger brother's in sales, like national sales. So within my family, my husband's an accountant, financial controller. So I've got a lot of people I can tap into that give me ideas without really going into specifics with them. If I need an ER, I can,
Yeah, you've got that support group.
Means to tap in.
Yep.
So, yeah, quite a talented family pool, I think.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Very lucky.
Feelings about the PIA moving forward? What's the plan?
I think we're going to get a lot done in subcommittees. So
I think so.
That's why our last meeting, I think I'm like, does everyone have a job? Has everyone got a team? Has everyone? Because I think we'll get a lot done.
Yeah, and I think
with the strengths of each person.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we've all got different strengths.
Look, I just think there was kind of a lack of structure. Yeah, and
and I think if everyone does a bit, then we'll do a lot together.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that works. We'll see how we go in March when we have our next meeting.
Yeah, should be good.
Yeah.
Overseas training.
Overseas training.
Where have you been? What have you done?
I've been to France, the US, Germany.
Are these all through pump companies?
Yeah, so pump companies, and I sold meters as well, so oval gear, and all those sort of. So I learnt about those as well.
Yeah.
So I was pretty lucky, really. I used to get sent to do all the training and then come back and train the staff.
Okay.
And I used to have so much fun on those trips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that was so good to me. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it was, positive experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that, we lack as a kind of a small business. We don't have that kind of global network to reach out for training and stuff like that.
And it's funny, those people still talk to me through LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff.
Interesting.
When the article went out about the PIA, a lot of the overseas manufacturers that I went to visit, those people wrote back to me and said, "Oh, wow, that's so exciting. It's good to hear."
That's awesome.
Yeah, so really positive. So it's nice, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Maybe because I was the only woman going, because they used to go in teams, and I was always with the Asian team, the Asian distributors.
Yep.
And I was always the only female, so yeah, they'd look after me. I'd be in the groups training, and I remember doing pump training in France, and we'd been there the whole week, and I felt like every day was like a school day where we were learning, systems and all that sort of stuff. And they'd say, "Has everyone got it?" And I'd be like, "No." And they're like, "Don't worry, we'll go back over it," and they persisted with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, which is good.
Awesome. The speech that you did, or the presentation you did about women in the industry, how did that go? What was that about?
It was just about the current numbers in the industry. It was about, are you supporting, as a business leader, are you supporting up-and-coming women that might work for you, that might have an interest? I think people have to look outside of, like, if someone hadn't have looked outside of, I didn't have an engineering degree.
Yeah.
But I had an ability to learn and a willingness and a motivation. I think sometimes we've got to look out of the norm of give people an opportunity rather than just look at their qualifications on a piece of paper and go, oh, they're good for the job or they're not good for the job.
Yeah.
I think there's more to hiring people than just looking at the piece of paper and
so what do we look at?
You can't teach motivation. So if someone's highly motivated, they'll learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I completely agree. I mean, so I used to hire off skills. So you'd find somebody who's got the skill set, but it never worked, because I think the most important attributes of an employee are personality, right?
Yeah.
So now it's personality test, and we'll figure out the training side of it afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So I've been doing things like, psychological personality tests and stuff like that.
And is that working for you?
Yeah, it's really good. Like, there's companies that do it that you can outsource to, and the base gives you a fee and you can send it out. And basically it gives you a bunch of off the top of my head, I'm not going to remember all, but it gives you a bunch of like this, personality traits, and then you can use that to see where and when they'll fit within the organisation.
I think it's a good way of looking at it.
That's a fantastic way. Yeah, a lot change when you start hiring people that fit in, because I mean the biggest issue with hiring is, like personality, so motivation, stuff like that, like you said, and a culture fit. I mean, they're the big two. And I think anything else can kind of be trained. I mean, obviously there's super specific jobs, like engineering and stuff like that, which you need.
Yes.
But a lot of it can, especially within our industry, can be taught.
Yeah, I think so. I always think by the time someone's got to me and in front of me, I think I know you can do the job. It's just whether, are you motivated?
Are you going to fit?
Are you going to fit?
Yeah.
I've had people say to me, I hired someone recently for operations at Regent, and he said to me, you didn't ask me that much because I didn't need to. I felt like I'd got you there. You had all the attributes that we needed in terms of skill and qualification. I just needed to know all those things.
Yeah.
Are you that person that's going to fit into our organisation? So
yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't like that I can read people. It can bring me down a little.
Yeah.
So I can see in meetings when meetings aren't going well, and I think
you can feel it.
Yeah, and I hate that. I wish I could shut that down sometimes.
Well, it's something that I feel like I've sucked at over the years and missed a lot of red flags in the hiring process. So something I've implemented is I'll make sure the leadership team or management team, whatever you want to call it, they go through the interviewing process as well.
So you've got some extra eyes.
Yeah, because I think it's a weakness of mine, and I do find like we got a HR manager, and yeah, she's fantastic, and she picks up on things that there's just no way that I would. Yeah, it's been a real godsend.
But I sometimes I wish I could shut that down, because I can go into a meeting and I can feel the energy, and I think, ugh.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And then that's what you focus on, and it gets you into a.
Yeah. Whereas I wish sometimes I could just shut it down and be a lot more transactional.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because people tend to tell me all sorts of things, and I sometimes wish I could shut that down.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Their problems become my problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the nature of what we do now, and people, it's changed, hasn't it?
It has changed.
Expectations of their boss have changed.
Look, it definitely has. And I think in some ways it's a good thing, but I think as a boss, you need to be able to pick and choose what you accept, right? So, I want to have some level of understanding about how everyone's mental health is.
Yeah, I get that.
But you've got to pick and choose, because if you're managing, let's say, like 12 people, or like for you 60, I mean, there's going to be so many people with problems, and if you allow yourself to get sucked into every little issue,
it can really weigh you down.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but I think mental health's really, really important. Being happy at work's really important.
Yeah, so how do you kind of put a focus on that within your organisations?
I try to make it a really positive culture. I'm trying to think how I do that, but I'm always in early. I'm always approachable. Always my door's open. People can come and talk to me directly. I get annoyed if one of the managers says, "Oh, she's too busy for that. She's too busy for you." That really annoys me, because I'm never too busy.
Okay.
Never too busy to speak to someone who needs to speak to me.
Okay.
I'll make time.
So how do you filter out the time wasters? Or is that just my fear?
My EA is awesome. She'll read it and go. She'll come in and say, "Oh, Kylie, we've got to do this in 5." So she'll give it the block if she needs to.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
she's great. She's really direct, and when I'm mulling over things for too long, she's a lot more, "What are you doing? Like, you know what to do. Just move. We've got to go." Yeah. She's sort of like that. I love that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
Kylie Kinsella, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.